in the ongoing quest to chronicle what upgrading to a decent graphics card can do for you in the budget PC gaming market, I have Rise of the Tomb Raider here before me, which is yet another game that I bought in anticipation of actually having a good graphics card. This game was not in any way designed to run on hardware as lousy as what I currently have in my PC. What's especially interesting is that with Rise of the Tomb Raider, my PC does not meet the minimum system requirements for it. So, I mean, I have a high-clocked dual-core processor, which is just above the minimum system requirements, but my graphics card is quite low, quite far below. Now, minimum system requirements advertised by game manufacturers does not mean that a computer that has less than those requirements can't play the game. Typically what it means is anything below that, they are not going to guarantee a quality experience. It's just kind of a CYA sort of thing. They don't want to have to deal with support calls from people that have crappy PCs when they can just say, look, your PC cannot be reasonably expected to play our game. If you're having issues, you got to deal with it yourself. That doesn't actually look terrible. Like the hair physics. It's very nice. Yeah, you can see some stuttering though. Ooh. Yeah, we're probably looking more in the teens as far as my average frame rate. The textures do look quite nice though. Oh, yeah, that's not amazing. Those textures on the grass. What in the heck? Oh, geez. Oh man. Ouch. Oh, the view distance. Oh, that view distance is so bad. Didn't even render the platform on that tree back there before I was already flying underneath it. Even that said, the texture on that grass isn't great. Oh, jeez. So, on high graphic settings, which is what the game defaulted to, just to be clear, average frame rates below 16 frames per second and minimum frame rate of 9 FPS. It's really bad. Like, movies are 24 frames per second. If you want a video game to be playable, like all the consoles, for example, kind of require you to hit 30 frames per second for a first-person or third-person game to be playable. That low a frame rate in a game like this would be just utterly crippling. I mean, 20 frames per second would be utterly crippling. I don't even want to talk about what 10 frames per second means. And to that end... But you know what? I'm going to try it. We're going to see how bad it is. It's going to be terrible. I can say that categorically right now. I expect my average frame rate to be about 12. That's what I'm thinking. What do you think? Put your guess in the comments below. And find out next week. No, I'm just kidding. You'll find out momentarily. So, the original Tomb Raider, the 2013 Tomb Raider, I was not running that thing at the highest graphic settings. I was running it at kind of just medium graphic settings on this PC, and it ran pretty smoothly. It looked pretty good. This is ridiculously bad. But anyways, back to the 2013 Tomb Raider, and actually, maybe I'll run the benchmark on that at like ultra settings just to see how that stacks up on this graphics card versus my new one that I'm getting after Christmas. For Christmas that I'm getting for... Holy crap, load! Oh geez. Wow. Yep. See, this is what we call a slideshow. It's not actually a playable game in any way. So, just so you know. But this is just utterly ridiculous. This is like literally a frame per second in some of these moments. Which is, it's about the worst you could possibly imagine and still actually have the game run. I think it's important to stress my graphics card is trying really hard. In fact, I can actually hear its fan spinning up, which is the first time I've ever actually heard that. So, you know, give it some credit. It's trying. It is technically running the benchmark, which is about all you can really expect at this point. Oh, geez. I think the music is stuck. No? Oh, wait, no, there it goes. Oh, this is bad. This is really bad, but the grass looks nicer than it did before. Those rocks are pretty. But holy crap. Is this graphics card not up to this task? Yeah, there's no way that was gonna render in time. Oh gosh. This is really, really bad. I mean, I keep saying that. I'm vocalizing my thoughts. I know that you can see it's really, really bad. I trust your ability to recognize that what is happening right now, is not playable. I trust you that far. I don't think you need me to tell you that. Holy crap! There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. My graphics card on Rise of the Tomb Raider highest settings. Minimum frame rate of less than half a frame per second. So that means it took 2 seconds to render some of those frames. And an average frame rate of under 9 frames per second. So there you go. This is a really pretty game, is the takeaway. Okay, so we're going to run one more benchmark. And that is, oh geez, it can't even render the menu properly. Okay. Just going to turn this all the way down. Just as low as it'll go. See if I can get a playable frame rate out of that. And not get the music to skip. Okay, there we go. Please, just die. Lowest. Yes. Off. Everything off. Yep. That is the right graphic setting for this PC, I suspect. So I think, just for kicks and giggles, I am going to hop over to the regular Tomb Raider game and take a look at the benchmark in that with everything cranked all the way up. See how that goes. Have that for comparison. What the heck. 2013 Tomb Raider. And for the record, I have the graphics maxed out to Ultimate. Now, this is not how I played this game. When I played the game, graphics were on a nice medium setting and looked pretty good. Played nice and smooth, got average frame rates of above 30 frames per second, which, you know, is kind of important to me. Worked well. So, now we've got Ultimate. We're going to benchmark this puppy and see how bad it is. I have my suspicions. Based on that benchmark of Rise of the Tomb Raider, my suspicions are pretty bad, and oh my gosh. It wasn't really surprising to me that I couldn't do much better than medium graphics settings in this game with this card. But I would have expected a little bit better than this on Ultimate settings. I don't know. Maybe my average is going to be above 20 frames per second. That last little bit there wasn't too bad. But right there at the beginning, that definitely looked like I was down into the single digits on my frames per second, which is obviously not playable at all. Again, we call that a slideshow in the business. And the business being people that have used a slide projector at some point in time. Wow. Yeah, that's definitely worse than I thought it would be. Well, so there you go. That's pretty bad. Definitely not playable frame rate by any stretch of the imagination. I'm feeling better and better about buying this graphics card by the minute. So yeah, I mean, from your perspective, you're gonna get to see how all of these games look after the upgrade, just like right now. So that's cool, time traveler, because I gotta wait like at least a couple of days. So, you lucky. Hey. Welcome back. I know that it may not seem this way, but it has been days since you last heard from me. Okay, not really for you, but it's been days since I last spoke to you, I guess. After spending about a half hour rearranging the cables inside of my case to make a graphics card that is literally twice the size of my old card fit, it's working, as you can see. We're back here in Rise of the Tomb Raider in the menu, which you may notice, isn't like having stuttery frame rate issues. We're gonna plug along and crank those up. Let it reload the textures again. And then benchmark it again. See what happens. See, already, graphics look much nicer. Frame rate way more consistent. Nice and smooth. Still though, I mean honestly, this looks pretty comparable frame rate wise to when I had it on the lowest setting, so I'm gonna go ahead and say that this has nothing to do with the graphics card, those frames that are dropping, which is good, because, I just upgraded the graphics card. I'd be really upset if there were issues there. There don't seem to be. Could very well be the processor, could be something else. See, it is rendering some of those rocks and trees and stuff a little bit further away now, but yeah, it's... Yep. I'm thinking that the speed with which it's rendering these close-up textures and objects, and the shadows, yeah, ooh boy. This kind of feels... I don't know, that's got to be processor related, because as you can see, my average frame rate's actually pretty darn good. Mountain Peak does really quite well, and again, those lows, just max frame rate in the 90s, and my minimum frame rate on the geothermal valley, whatever that means, 3.6. So, there's some discrepancies there. Let's try this. Highest. Very high. Okay, here we go. So, the highest graphics preset. This is not actually completely maxed out on every setting. Which, I don't know. This card might be able to handle that, but at 1080p, it might be able to handle that. But yeah, looks very nice. Yeah, that's... I don't know. It's really smooth, and then it just occasionally drops a frame here and there. Except for this last one, doesn't really seem to be much better. It's much smoother. It's not like watching a slideshow, but rendering distance is still really lousy, and a lot of those objects are still failing to render, which that's an, I don't know, processor issue, could be a RAM speed issue, so maybe my system RAM is the bottleneck there, or it could very well be the processor, which, it's kind of an old processor. Come to think of it, I'm not actually sure all those little details actually rendered in the last... You know what? Go back, watch the last one, and let me know if they did. So still, max frame rate really quite high, and the minimum frame rate is actually a little bit better this time. Average, that's fantastic. That's a great playable frame rate. I honestly would have expected this card to be able to give me frame rates closer to 60. So there's definitely a different bottleneck in the system than the graphics card. And I'm gonna work out what that is. As I said, I suspect at this point it's probably the processor. And now I want to go look at the old Tomb Raider, because I suspect that I'm gonna be able to crank that one all the way up and have no issues. So let's get to that. So here we are. I'm gonna check this real quick. Nothing should have changed. Right resolution, highest level preset. That's what we're looking for. Benchmark. Yeah, yes. 2013, their finest, didn't stand a chance against the muscle of this brand new 2016 graphics card. Which I suppose is kind of one of the most obvious things I think I've ever said. No issues. Huh. You know, I suspect that this game maxes out at 60 frames per second. It just seems like such a nice round number. So, there you have it. Haha, teehee. You probably thought I was done. But, considering I recorded all of that previous video that you just watched long enough ago that I have since purchased a new processor. Okay, yeah, that wasn't very long. It was a couple of weeks. After my experience with the new graphics card and the dramatic improvement that made over the visuals of Rise of the Tomb Raider, and after playing through a good portion of Rise of the Tomb Raider on high graphics settings, which was running pretty smooth, just fine, and kind of just thinking to myself, oh, I really would love to turn it up just that one more tick higher, and being pretty sure that one of the major issues I was having was with my processor being able to handle loading massive amounts of data quickly enough to actually, work. I went ahead and sprung on a used Haswell i5 to go in my PC. So, yeah, and it is installed, and we're going to run the benchmark of Rise of the Tomb Raider. I've already turned the graphics settings back all the way up to Ultra, which is just very high in this game. So there's one thing that you are going to notice once this finishes loading, which is the reason this is taking so long is actually one of the main reasons for the things you're going to notice. So as you can see, looks very nice. There are no hitches, and it's really quite smooth, and just makes me warm and fuzzy inside. Now, to be fair, just after upgrading the graphics card, this portion did run pretty smoothly already, just on its own. Not this smoothly, but pretty darn close on Ultra, or very high settings. This next section, however, is where I think you're probably going to notice the biggest difference. At least I did. So here you're going to see a few frame hitches at the very beginning, and then it's going to smooth out and turn into this nice buttery pile of mist and smoothness, and it just makes me warm and fuzzy inside. So, there's obviously already a visible improvement on the highest graphics settings. I can turn it up to the highest graphics settings, and the only places you're going to see those frame hitches are at the beginning of each of these three segments. Alright, hitch. There's another. And then it smooths out a little bit, and as you can see, things are loading in faster, and look, platform right at the end there. And then all this other stuff loads in a lot faster as it scrolls through. Now, it's not already loaded in once the thing starts, which may seem a little weird considering that it takes a loading screen before it actually starts. But this is one of the things about benchmarks, and let's just talk through that. I mean, first of all, look at how much better that is. Almost 60 FPS versus the 40 something I was getting. So just upgrading the processor, mostly the difference is between a quad core and a dual core processor in this case, because more threads on a game that can handle them means a lot more processing gets done. Now, my last processor was clocked at 4 gigahertz. This is clocked at 3.3, so it's losing a little bit of speed, but the extra threads way more than make up for it, and I'm picked up 10 frames per second on my average across the board. But you'll still notice that my minimum frame rates on the first one is pretty good. 21 was the minimum. It was just probably dropped 1 frame at the beginning, and that was it. The other two still down in the single digits. Now, the first loading screen takes longer, in case you didn't notice, even though that scene is not necessarily any more complex than the other two. And that's because it's giving me the requisite time for my system, which does not have as much RAM as it maybe could, does not have as fast a RAM as it maybe could, and has a pretty slow hard drive. gives that plenty of time to get everything into RAM, and then it runs much more smoothly, and we end up with really high minimum frame rate, versus the other two, where the loading screen is shorter, and then not as much information makes it into the RAM because I only have 8 gigs of RAM and it's slower RAM, and then it's trying to load stuff into RAM off of the hard drive, which is slow. So the bottleneck in my system now is either the speed of my hard drive, could upgrade to a solid state drive, or the amount of RAM I have. Now, of those two things, adding 8 gigs of RAM is relatively easy. I can just get 2 4-gig sticks, drop them onto the 2 empty slots on my motherboard, 16 gigs of RAM. Would probably make those frame rates go up even more. But at this point, I mean, the honest truth is what this means is I will notice some frame rate hitching happening right after a cutscene, or right at the beginning of a level, or something after new information has been loaded off of the hard drive. It'll jump me into the game, and then more stuff will continue to be loaded while I'm sitting there waiting, basically. So, what that means is it's probably not that big a deal, and I'm probably not really going to worry. I mean, 8 gigs of RAM, I could probably get that for like $30 if I wanted. So, I may do that, but it's not going to make a huge difference. It'll make 5 or 10 frames per second down on the low end. Would make that benchmark numbers look a little bit better. Probably push me up toward a full 60 frames per second on the average, but the game playability is not going to be drastically improved by that. Now, getting the new processor has made a big difference. I'm really pleased with that. So, all said and done, I have upgraded the processor and graphics card in my computer within the space of about a month. This thing will run AAA titles like Rise of the Tomb Raider on the highest graphics settings pretty smoothly. So, there you go. That's about the difference that you're looking at between a super budget gaming PC and just kind of a mostly budget gaming PC with more money spent on the processor and graphics cards. Hope that can help you make informed decisions about what kind of gaming you want to do on your PC and what kind of PC you want for the type of gaming you're going to do. Because the way my PC was before ran Overwatch on high graphic settings, buttery smooth. So if you're really just interested in games like that, or you don't care about the graphics looking nice and you just want it to run pretty smoothly, you can probably get by for a PC less than $300. But if you need something a little bit more like a console, then you're going to have to spend closer to $500. And if you want something that blows consoles completely out of the water, that's in the like $700 to $800 range, and that money will be spent on just a nicer processor, slightly nicer than what I have, and a much nicer graphics card. So, there you go. Hope that helps. This is Time to Punt for Calling All Platforms, signing off.